you can take our husband from us?
Please take the chief and let me go.
Let's see if your beauty will save you from the beast.
I don't want to marry. If I marry, I will die. Please don't sell me off like a goat. Adùnní begged her parents, but no one listened to her. No one understood that she already took a dangerous oath with a river goddess. Now they have made a terrible mistake that will change their lives forever. Let's go back to how it all began. But before I start, as usual, please subscribe, like, and comment. This keeps me encouraged. Also, do let me know in which part of the world my amazing Army Story family are watching from. Now, sit, take your chilled zobo and chin chin and enjoy the story. In a faraway village called Ika, the sun used to shine softly and the trees danced to the wind. It was a quiet place, but inside one small hut, there was no song. There was only the sound of a young girl weeping. This girl's name was Adùnní. Adùnní was as beautiful as the morning star. Her skin was smooth like gold and her heart was as soft as boiled yam. But Adùnní's eyes were always red. Why? Because the person who used to rub her back with sweet-smelling ori was gone. Her mother had gone to the great beyond, leaving Adùnní all alone. Adùnní's father, Pabelo, did not like to sleep in an empty house, so he brought home a new wife. Her name was Iyagbonka. Iyagbonka was not a person. Inside her chest, she did not have a heart of flesh. She had a hard, cold stone. She looked at Adùnní and saw a weed in her garden. She hated her for no reason at all. Adùnní, you lazy goat, you useless child, Iyagbonka would shout. Kwa! That was the sound of her hand hitting Adùnní's cheek. One night, when the moon was hiding behind the clouds and the crickets were singing, Iyagbonka kicked Adùnní's door open. Get up, the water pot is empty. Adùnní rubbed her sleepy eyes. But Mama, I finished my chores. Look, the pots are shining. Iyagbonka laughed a wicked laugh. The pots are clean, but my throat is dry. Go to the river, now. Adùnní looked out the tiny window. It was midnight. The world was black like charcoal. Mama, please, Adùnní begged, falling to her knees. The bush is full of thorns. The night spirits are walking, and you know it is taboo to fetch water when the sun is asleep. Please, let me go in the morning. Iyagbonka slapped her so hard that her head hit the clay wall. If you are not back in 1 hour, do not come back at all. I will tell your father you ran away with a boyfriend, and he will deal with you himself. Adùnní looked at her father's door. She cried out, Baba, help me. But Pabelo was under the spell of his new wife. He covered his ears with his cloth and pretended to be snoring. He left his own blood to walk into the jaws of the night. Adùnní picked up her heavy clay pot. Her legs were shaking like a leaf in the wind. Her heart was beating against her ribs. The forest at midnight is not a friend. The trees look like giant men with long black arms reaching out to grab her hair. Every time a dry leaf went crackle, Adùnní would jump. Oh, mother, look at your daughter on this dark road. Finally, she heard it, the sound of the ocean river. The water looked like black oil under the moonlight. Adùnní knelt by the bank, but just as she dipped her pot into the water, the river stopped moving. The bubbles disappeared. The water became as still as a glass mirror. Then, blue, 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 a big bubble rose from the center. A woman came out of the water, but she was not a person like you and me. Her hair was long down to her waist. It glowed like 1,000 gold. Her skin glowed like the morning sun itself. From her waist down, she had no legs. Instead, she had a long golden tail that moved like a kingfish. Mami Wata! Adùnní screamed. Kapasa! Her clay pot fell and broke into 100 pieces. The mermaid swam closer. Her voice was like the sound of a small bell. Little bird, why are you crying by my water at this hour? This is the time when the spirits come to bathe. My stepmother, Adùnní sobbed as her tears fell into the river. She sent me. If I go home with an empty hand, she will kill me. And my mother is dead. I have no one to fight for me. The mermaid felt pity. She reached into the deep water and pulled out a string of beads. They were not ordinary beads. They were eleke idun, the beads of joy. They were shining gold and felt warm like a mother's hug. Take these, the mermaid said. Wear them under your clothes. If the world becomes too wicked, touch them and jump into the water. You will become like me. In my palace under the sea, there is no hunger, no crying, and no wicked stepmothers. But then the mermaid's face became very serious. But listen well, there is a price. If you wear these beads, you belong to the water. You must never marry a man. If a man touches you as a husband touches a wife, the magic will turn into a bitter curse. Do you agree? Adùnní thought of the slap. She thought of the cold floor. I agree, she cried. I don't want a husband. I only want to be safe. The mermaid placed the beads around Adùnní's waist. Flash! Suddenly, a new clay pot appeared on the sand filled to the brim with the cleanest, sweetest water. And when Adùnní blinked, the mermaid was gone. Vanished. Adùnní walked home with the pot on her head. When Iyagbunka saw her, her eyes nearly popped out of her head like a snail. But Adùnní said nothing. She just went to her corner and slept with a small smile on her face. From that day, Adùnní stayed far away from boys. She would run very fast if they tried to come close. Whenever life was too hard, Adùnní would run to the river. She would say the secret words and boom, she would turn into a mermaid, swimming and eating delicious food in the spirit world. But trouble was coming, and this trouble wore a big agbada and had many wives. One afternoon, Adùnní was walking back from the stream. She was humming a song of the water. Just then, Chief Aládé saw her. Now, Chief Aládé was a man with many cows and many bags of money. He had 7 wives and 18 female children. But Chief Aládé was never happy. He wanted a son badly. He saw Adùnní's smooth skin and her quiet way, and his heart began to knock. Kigun, Kigun. I must have that girl, he hissed. She is the perfect wife to give me a son. He did not ask Adùnní what she wanted. No, he went straight to her house. He showed Pabelu and Iyagboka heavy bags of shining coins and fat cows with big horns. Iyagboka's eyes turned yellow with greed. Take her, she shouted. She is just a lazy girl. We don't need her here. Adùnní fell to the floor. Baba, please, she cried, catching her father's feet. The chief is an old man. He is like a grandfather to me, and I have a secret. I cannot marry him. But Pabelu was counting the money. 1, 2, 3. He did not look at his daughter's face. Be quiet. Your job is to bring wealth to this house. You will marry the chief on the next market day. It is finished. Adùnní cried until her throat was dry. She touched the eleke idun, the beads under her cloth. She wanted to run to the river, but Iyagboka was too clever. She tied Adùnní's hands with thick, rough ropes. You think you are a bird that can fly away? Iyagboka laughed. No, you are a goat being sold at the market, and goats do not choose who buys them. The wedding was done in a hurry. Fiang. Before she knew it, Adùnní was inside the chief's big house. But it was not a happy home. The 7 wives were standing there, crossing their arms. Their faces were as sour as old lime. Look at her, whispered Olori Bebe, the first wife. She thinks she is a queen because her skin is like silk. Another hissed. She thinks she will be the favorite. We will show her that the old soup is tastier than the new one. That night, the chief came into Adùnní's room. He smelt of old tobacco and heavy wine. He reached out his wrinkled hand to touch her. Adùnní jumped back like a deer. Her heart was racing. She remembered the mermaid's warning. If a man touches you, the magic will turn into a curse. "Please, my lord," she cried, "I am sick. The moon blood is flowing in my body. If you touch me now, the gods will be angry. You are a great man. You don't want the curse of a bleeding woman to take away your strength." The chief was a man who feared charms and spells. He jumped back quickly. "Moon blood? On your wedding night?" "Yes, my lord. Please give me 7 days. If you touch me before 7 days, you might turn into a woman yourself." The chief's eyes went wide. 7 days, no more. After 7 days, I will have you and you will give me a son. He slammed the door and locked it. Bam! Adùnní fell to the floor. She only had 7 days. 7 days before the magic broke. 7 days before her life was destroyed. But the 7 wives were listening at the door, and they were planning something very, very wicked. The next day, the chief's house was as quiet as a graveyard, but the air felt heavy, like a big rain was coming. The 7 wives did not talk to Adùnní. They only looked at her with eye medicine, eyes full of hate. Chief would come back from his meeting. He would bring lots of gifts to Adùnní. He would even massage her feet in front of other wives. Their jealousy grew so badly, like it would explode from their chest. Then one day, a man came to the house to give a message to the chief, telling him there is an urgent meeting in the village neighboring, and he would be needed. The chief quickly prepared. "I will be back in 2 days' time. I hope when I return, you will be ready to give me a son," he told Adùnní, and left. That night, when the chief left, the house was silent, and suddenly there were strange footsteps. Adùnní sat up in her dark room. "Who is there?" she asked. Her voice was shaking like a small bird. No one answered, but she could hear the breathing of many people. Suddenly, bam! 5 women rushed into the room. Before Adùnní could even scream, a heavy wooden object, the kind they used to pound yam, swung through the air. Paka! The wood hit Adùnní on the head. Stars began to dance in her eyes. Everything went blurry. She felt something warm like tea running down her face. It was her blood. "Is she dead?" one wife whispered. "Not yet, but she will be soon," another replied. Adùnní tried to reach for her golden beads, but her arms felt like heavy stones. The wives wrapped her in a dirty, smelly mat and carried her out into the dark night. When Adùnní opened her eyes, the world was grey. She was not in a bed. She was tied to a giant ancient tree with thick ropes that bit into her skin like teeth. She was in the forest of the big trees. This was a place where nobody went. People said a monster lived there, a beast with teeth like knives and a voice like a thunderstorm. The 7 wives stood in front of her, laughing. "He he he! Look, goodbye, little queen," mocked Oloribebe, the first wife. She pulled Adùnní's hair one last time. "Let us see if your smooth skin will save you from the monster. By morning, only your bones will be left for the ants to eat." "Please," Adùnní choked out. "I don't want the chief. You can have him. Just let me go." But the wives only turned their backs and ran away, leaving Adùnní all alone in the place of death. The sun went down. The forest became black like the bottom of a pot. And then Adùnní heard it. Something very big was walking. The ground was shaking. Giddy, 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 giddy. A deep growl made the leaves on the trees shiver. Adùnní closed her eyes tight. "Mother," she whispered, "I am coming to meet you." She felt a hot breath on the back of her neck. It smelled like wild fur and old earth. She waited for the teeth to bite. She waited for the end. But instead of biting, the big hairy shadow moved slowly. He looked at Adùnní with big, sad eyes. He used his long claws not to hurt her, but to cut the ropes. Rip, rip. When the ropes fell, the beast stepped back. He pointed a large hairy hand toward the path. "Run," he said. His voice was deep like a drum, but it was very, very sad. Adùnní was shocked. She wanted to say thank you, but she was too scared. She turned and began to run as fast as her legs could carry her. "I must get away," she thought. Suddenly, a yellow snake, a very deadly one, hidden in the leaves, bit her ankle. Adùnní felt a sharp sting. Her legs became heavy like lead. She fell to the ground and the world began to go dark again. As her eyes closed, she saw the big hairy shadow standing over her. "Don't leave me," she whispered. And then everything went quiet. When Adùnní opened her eyes, she was not on the cold ground. She was lying on a mat made of dry sticks. The air was warm and she could hear a sound from a small fire in the corner. She looked at her leg. The snake bite was wrapped in green leaves and a paste that smelled like forest medicine. The pain had flown away. Then she saw him. The beast was sitting by the fire, stirring a pot of soup. He was big and hairy, with teeth that looked like they could crunch bones, but he was moving very softly, like he didn't want to wake a sleeping baby. "You are awake," the beast said. His voice was deep like a mountain, but it didn't scratch her ears. "Drink this. It will wash the snake spit out of your blood." For many days, the beast took care of Adùnní. He brought her sweet berries that tasted like honey and cool water from the rock. They started to talk. Adùnní told him about her wicked stepmother and the jealous wives who tried to kill her. The beast looked at her with eyes that were not scary at all. They were sad, like a dog that has lost its home. One day, when Adùnní felt strong, she went to the stream to wash. She saw an old woman carried a big pile of firewood. The woman's back was bent like a dry stick. "Wait, Grandma, let me help you," Adùnní said. She carried the firewood. They walked for some time. Then suddenly, the old woman asked her to drop the firewood. When Adùnní looked around, there was no house. The old woman turned around and she began to glow like a firefly. "You have a golden heart, daughter of the river," the woman whispered. She reached into her cloth and pulled out a tiny clay jar with white shells on it. "This is the jar of one breath," the woman said. "Inside is one wish, only one. You can wish for gold, or you can wish to kill your enemies, or you can wish for life. But when you use it, the jar will break. Choose well, Adùnní." And then, phew, the old woman turned into white smoke and vanished. That night, Adùnní sat with the beast. She kept thinking of what the old woman told her. "You look lost. Are you okay?" the beast asked. "I'm fine. I was just wondering how a beast like you talks like a human," Adùnní replied, her voice calm. But then the beast sighed. "Adùnní," the beast said softly, "I was not always a monster. I was a prince. My name is Adéoyè. My own uncle was greedy for the crown, so he paid a wicked herbalist to turn me into this thing. He threw me here so the world would forget me." "Are you serious? You mean your own uncle did this to you?" Adùnní was shocked. Adùnní looked at him. She didn't see the fur anymore. She didn't see the claws. She saw a man who was lonely, just like her. Deep down her heart, she was starting to love the beast. But then she remembered the mermaid's cold warning, "You must never belong to a man." Back in the village of Ika, the air was heavy and sour. Chief Aládé had returned from his journey and he was calling for his new wife. "Adùnní, come and greet your husband," he shouted. But only the 7 wives came out. They put on long faces like funeral masks. Olaribaby began to squeeze out fake tears. "Oh, our husband, a great evil has happened. Adùnní went to the river to wash her cloth and the water spirits took her. We found only her broken pot. She is gone." Inside, the wives were dancing. They thought Adùnní was already food for the ants in the forest of big trees. But the 7 wives did not know that the day they entered into the forest to commit the evil that awoke Ogoro, the god of animals, that same morning, the wives woke up with a shock. Oloribaby looked in her mirror and screamed. Her ears had grown long and hairy like a donkey's. Another wife started growing feathers on her arms, and the third could only say, "Meh, meh," like a hungry goat. The village people ran away, shouting, "The wives are turning into animals." Chief Kenishe became worried and scared. He ran to Babalawo Ayo to ask questions. "Your wives have committed a great evil, and they must confess, else they will die," the Babalawo said. Deep in the forest, Adùnní held the jar of one breath. The white light inside was glowing like a trapped star. She looked at the beast and whispered, "I have a secret. This jar can give me anything. I was going to wish for revenge on the people who tried to kill me, so they will feel what I felt. But I cannot leave you like this." The beast shook his big head. "No, Adùnní, use it for yourself. Go back to your people. If I become a man, my mean uncle will try to kill me again." Adùnní smiled, and her face was brighter than the sun. "It would be selfish of me not to return the kindness you have shown me, my prince. You chose to save me, now let me save you too." She pulled the stopper. A beautiful smell of rain and lilies filled the air. "I wish for the beast to be a man again." Suddenly, the light swallowed the beast. The hair fell away like dry leaves. The claws became soft fingers. When the light cleared, there stood a man as handsome as a god, dressed in white robes. "Adùnní," Prince Adeoye cried, pulling him into a hug. "Thank you so much. I will never forget this favor. Come, let us go to my palace." Adùnní was happy, but then she felt a cold shiver. She remembered her promise. She remembered the ileke, the beads around her waist. "I cannot go," she said, her voice breaking. "I took an oath to a mermaid never to be with any man. If I belong to you, the river will destroy me." "Let us go and see the mermaid. We will face the water together," the prince said. They walked together until they got to the river. "You have to stay here. I will go myself to see her. It's my cross. Let me bear it alone," Adùnní said, stepping into the waves and singing the spirit song. Flash! Her legs joined together and her tail returned. She dived deep, deep into the blue. The prince could not believe his eyes as he watched Adùnní turn into a mermaid and swim into the river. Under the water, the mermaid's eyes were like two lightning bolts. "You broke the law," the mermaid roared. "You gave your heart to a man of the earth." Adùnní knelt in the sea sand. "Great mother, I was a frightened child when I made that promise. I thought all men were like my father. But this man showed me kindness. Take back my beads. Take back your magic. Just let me be a woman who loves." The mermaid looked at the surface. She saw Prince Adeoye standing on the shore, ready to jump into the deep to find Adùnní, even though he could not swim. The mermaid sighed a long, bubbly sigh. "True love is a magic older than mine," the mermaid whispered. She touched Adùnní's waist. The golden beads turned into bubbles. Adùnní's legs became legs again. "Go, daughter of the land. You are free. But tell your prince, if he ever makes you cry, the river will remember." Adùnní came out of the water like a fresh flower. The prince took her to his palace, and when the mean uncle saw the prince, he shouted, "Ghost!" The prince immediately gave the order, and he was dragged to the dungeon. But Adùnní had one more thing to do. She went back to her father's house. She saw her father and Iyabonka running toward her, hoping for money. "My daughter," Iyabonka said, rushing to hug her. "I am not your daughter," she told them coldly. "You sold me like a goat. Now you will work your own farm and eat only what your hands can plant. I am only here to tell you I am returning every penny you collected from Chief Ajadi. I am no longer his wife," Adùnní said and walked away. She went to Chief Alade's house. She was shocked to see the wives now acting like animals. "I am giving back the money you paid. I am not a wife to be bought. I am belong to another." The wives went to the village square to confess. The wives were sent to live in the forest, and Chief Alade, he lived a sad life. His 18 daughters grew up to be so loud and bossy that he spent his days covering his ears. Adùnní and her prince lived in joy. Every year, they went to the river to drop white flowers into the water, thanking the mermaid. One day when they were walking back, together they saw the old woman from a distance waving at them. I hope you enjoyed this story. The moral lesson of this story is simple. The hand that sells others like goats will eventually graze with the animals, but the heart that chooses kindness, even in the middle of a dark forest, will always find its way to a throne. In Yoruba, we say, "Ẹni tó bá gbé òrè, òrè ni ó yóò jà." Every person got exactly what they planted. The stepmother and father planted greed and got emptiness. The wives planted hate and became beasts. But Adùnní planted kindness and courage, so she harvested a kingdom. Thank you so much for watching.